Welcome to the Coach Debbie Potts Show, where high performers learn how to stop guessing and start aging stronger, not slower. Your host is Coach Debbie Potts, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, metabolic health coach, and host of this show. Here, we dive into the why behind fatigue, stubborn weight, hormone chaos, gut issues, and declining performance. Using real data, functional lab testing, metabolism analysis, and simple daily habits that actually move the needle. Whether you're an endurance athlete, an executive, or simply committed to becoming your strongest future you, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Puzzle together again to understand what really changes as we age. How can we build resiliency and start creating the ideal self, my ideal me I want to be when I'm older, when I'm 70, when I'm 80, when I'm 90 years old, how I want to be showing up in life every day. So if you are a high performer in middle age, I hope you are being a health optimizer, not just focusing on doing the nutrition and doing the exercise program. Often people are doing the same routine they did when they were younger. And now we can see that things change. We can feel it. We don't have to see it. We feel it. We know we stop getting the same results. So if we start looking at what changes as we age, and then we can gain some insight on what we can do differently to get the desired results, to improve how we age. What I keep talking about is working north to south. And I learned this 10 years ago when I did my Nutritional Therapy Association program. It's called Nutritional Therapy Practitioner, functional testing, that we work on the foundations. And the functional part is a hands-on test that we'd palpate on different points in the body and test supplements against those points to see if that supplement made a difference. We were working on the body's innate intelligence to restore it back to what I say now is metabolic harmony. So today's episode, I want to talk about if you've wondered why two people can eat the same exact meal, take the same supplement program, train with the same coach, following the same routine, and yet one person thrives, the other struggles with fatigue, unexplained weight gain, bloating, anxiety, poor recovery. How about brain fog and stubborn inflammation? The answer may have less to do with what they are eating and far more to do with whether their nervous system is capable of receiving the message. Today, we are going deep into another one of my favorite rabbit holes, talking about the vagus nerve, but taking it a step further, how nutrition literally builds the vagus nerve. As I am getting ready to read the book of Dr. Nawaz Habib, and he has an upgraded vagus nerve program and talks about vagus nerve nutrition. And I started to think about this, not just poor digestion, because we're in sympathetic dominance, leads to if we have poor vagal tone, leads to low stomach acid, low bile flow release, low pancreatic enzymes, and all sorts of problems downstream after that because of that lack of communication with and signaling of our digestive processes. What if we're not getting the nutrients to even feed that process? Crazy. So thinking about how nutrition builds the vagus nerve. Here's something we don't talk about. The vagus nerve is a living tissue. It's not just this cable connecting your brain to the organs. What's always these rabbit holes is just thinking about how the body's built. Cells, membranes, mitochondria, blood supply, the role of neurotransmitters, immune cells, electrical impulses. I took all these exercise phys classes back in college, and I didn't really get all of it. You're reading the textbooks, but now putting this together and understanding how the systems of the body all work together. as we call it, metabolic harmony. It's that orchestra. All the players need to work. Our body doesn't work separately. And that's kind of got me going on this rabbit hole. Is when my dad was in the hospital, he passed away 4 years ago now, I got, and I'm still angry about it, the heart doctor was coming to see him. He had the kidney doctor coming to see him in the hospital. And then he had the cancer doctor. These three, going to get me angry. 3 doctors really didn't communicate. They didn't have an integrated approach. They were not, as far as I know, looking at the blood chemistry altogether, doing a full panel and identifying optimal ranges versus normal ranges and high and low markers, what that meant, pieces of the puzzle. They were not looking at how the body works together. The liver detoxifies, and drainage pathways include the kidneys, and the heart is impacted by so many factors: blood flow, nitric oxide, mineral balancing, the vagus nerve. So I go down these rabbit holes because I see this happening in my community, my environment, the people I see, the family I watch aging. So when we talk about the connection of the nervous system and connecting the body systems all together, how is it built? How do we create metabolic harmony? Optimize all these systems to work together so one instrument isn't out of tune and the other players are not able to do their job because we don't have everyone working together. So when we talk about the raw materials that we need every day for even the vagus nerve to do its job, it's just like the muscles require protein, the bones require minerals, the red blood cells require iron, and our vagus nerve does have requirements too for nutritional therapy. And if those requirements are not being met because we're not eating the right foods, we're not digesting the foods, communication begins to break down. And we know when a communication breaks down, if you don't, I don't send really good text messages. If you have to send me a really long audio recorded message that's super long, they have to read a long time, pick up the phone and call me, or let's schedule time to talk. My messages back are very short and just, okay, got it, chat later, not a lot. So if we think about the communication begins to break down in our own body because we're not sending the right signals and they're not landing, we start to have breakdown and everything downstream begins to suffer. Digestion, our metabolism, our hormones, immune system, your mood, sleep, healthy aging. And this is why I love to dive into understanding how nutrition is not just simply fuel. Learning more by thinking about this differently is that it's information. And we've talked a lot about signals lately. And I think it's the peptide phase, fad, I don't know, maybe it's here to stay, but fad of understanding the role of peptides should be the new fad. And not just, GLP-1, people don't understand it's actually naturally made in your body, but understanding all these different peptides are signals, and then understanding what changes as we age are signals. Muscle protein synthesis, anabolic resistance, sympathetic dominance. What we really want to come down to discussing is, what are we teaching our nervous system? So what signals are we sending our body? So if we walk through what I created a few months ago as I did this vagus nerve training, a vagal nerve nutrition pyramid. How much of a rabbit hole is that? Because I was listening to all these different vagus nerve researchers and interviewing them on my podcast, and it really goes into what I call the FutureYou Blueprint Method and working on building the terrain and creating more flow. We need to optimize their performance. We're here to be health optimizers. You're listening to this because you are fit and healthy. You want to be fit and healthy from the inside out at a cellular level as you age. You want to improve your quality of life that last half or quarter end of your life. You hopefully are on a mission to understand what we do today impacts our future self. So first, let's review again what the vagus nerve actually needs. We know what it does, but let's talk about analogies because that's how my brain works sometimes. If we imagine trying to build a high-performance electric car, you would not simply pour gasoline into it and hope it runs. We need batteries. We need the right wiring, software, cooling systems, sensors, communication networks. The vagus nerve works the same way. If we learn about what Navab talks about as healthy cell membranes, electrical conductivity is needed. We need neurotransmitters, as acetylcholine we talk about. Energy, we need ATP, so we need mitochondria to function. We need stable blood sugar, a healthy microbiome, lots of good plants and flowers, succulents, not a bunch of weeds. And inflammation should be low. We want to have proper digestion. We want good oxygen flow, nitric oxide. All this has to work together. And if we miss any piece of this, the entire communication system becomes less efficient, just as I said, the orchestra. So this is why in nutritional therapy, we really focus on not just food as calories, but building the biology that allows communication to happen. So if we start with the foundation, I think of safety. As I've been talking about, safety first. We can't build muscle as we get older. We can't repair from a parasite or dysbiosis, pathogen, H. pylori. We have to make sure our body feels safe. And one of the nutrients that might be part of that safety first phase, restoring flow, isn't just magnesium supplement or omega-3 fatty acid or collagen. It's feeling safety. The brain's constantly asking one question we talk about. Is it safe to build or do you need to survive? Blood sugar is the fastest way the body needs to answer that question. When glucose crashes, stress hormone goes up. Cortisol will increase, adrenaline will increase, your sympathetic nervous system takes over. And the vagus nerve becomes a little quieter. And digestion will slow down, inflammation will rise, and recovery stops. This is why underfueling and chronic fasting we were doing too much of as athletes and female athletes, excessive endurance training we do as endurance athletes and retired athletes as myself. But now I know my body feels better when I do less and I get more results. Poor sleep, psychological stress, all of these produce similar physiological patterns. The body, as I've said before to you, doesn't distinguish between emotional stress, financial stress, environmental stress, metabolic stress. It all comes into one stress beaker. What we want to do nutritionally to feel safe, so our vagus nerve gets a signal that we are safe to build. We're not in sympathetic nervous system activation, sympathetic dominance that we need to survive. But to send the message we are safe, we need to eat enough of the right foods. We need to prioritize quality protein with all the essential amino acids that have enough leucine amino acid in that profile. We need to balance our meals and meal timing so we are letting our body digest that food before we eat again. Supporting metabolic flexibility instead of extremes. This is where our healing can begin. So not just thinking supplements are the only answer. I do take omega-3 fatty acids, magnesium, vitamin D, but how to send that signal with how we're eating to send the signal, I'm safe. So we need to eat enough so our body does not perceive a constant energy shortage, which can trigger this stress response and disrupt normal physiological function. We need to prioritize protein, as I talk all the time about, because protein provides the building blocks, the amino acids needed to repair the tissues, build the enzymes, hormones, and produce or support rather, neurotransmitter production. Now, we know we need the essential amino acids to do that. And it's not just eating protein that we want to focus on, but the type of protein I find needs to be clarified. We need to be a little clear because I see all these foods, popcorn with protein. Someone was just telling me they're eating Cheerios with popcorn, Cheerios with protein. So it's not just eat food that's protein. We need to make sure it's protein from the ocean, from the land. It's protein that is real, not manufactured, animal-based protein. So we might get some plant-based protein options, but we need to be creative of getting the right essential amino acids from that. So we need to balance our meals, the mix of some carbs from nature. Some people can tolerate more than others depending on their genetics and activity level. Essential fatty acids and essential amino acids from protein to stabilize our blood sugar, to maintain steady energy levels throughout the day. This is why I would love every client for at least 30 days to wear a continuous glucose monitor when we start. Get that information from your body. What signal are you sending it? I want you to understand metabolic flexibility is burning fat as your main fuel source, shift to carbohydrates when we need to move quickly, and then go back to be burning fat as your main fuel again. So metabolic flexibility, we want to avoid extremes. We want to allow the body to efficiently switch between carbs and fats for fuel rather than relying on restrictive diets or rigid eating patterns that we discovered. You can't just tell your body burn fat all the time. And I think that's what I did. AMPK dominance, that I wasn't shifting to carbohydrates back to fat when you're doing the endurance sports, doing fasting and eating really low carbohydrate. I think we've lost, as someone did a podcast on this years ago with me, talking about we need metabolic flexibility. And now I finally get it, that we get so stuck in our head that this is the only way that you are still metabolically flexible if you're eating no carbs, but really we still need to add those times that we add in carbohydrates from nature in and around those more intense workouts where we are burning carbohydrates for fuel source. So another podcast we can do. Think about where healing begins. We need to be well nourished and have a stable internal environment that allows the body to shift out of survival mode and into repair, build, recovery. So it's not only taking supplements which support but not replace our foundational habits. So with safety, this is meaning that we are constantly sending the right messages of enough nourishment and signals that is not under threat. And this is a huge eye-opener for me. If you were doing fasting excessively as myself on top of doing low carb, low calorie, maybe some OMAD, 16-8 fasting, or I was doing 20 hours fasting and then eating on top of working out 2-3 times a day. If you're training for races, I was, active job. It really will, what we learned backfired if we are fit and healthy, active individuals doing excessive calorie reduction and fasting and not getting enough of the nutrients we need to build and sending that signal that we are safe to build in the first place. Something to think about. Now, minerals, I've done a lot of podcasts with being minerals. We did years ago with, LMNT, both people of LMNT talking about electrolytes. And I will do some on HTMA, hair tissue mineral analysis, and the connection of minerals. So if we think about minerals as the electrical language of life, the electrical system, every nerve in your body communicates through tiny electrical impulses. And these impulses depend on minerals. So we think about sodium and potassium as the battery. We can look at magnesium as a regulator and calcium as a switch. And trace minerals are, say, the supporting cast. So without adequate minerals, our signals become less strong. I hate the word weaker, but we could say weaker or less strong. Area of opportunity. So this is where we might listen to the podcast I did on pickle juice with Philip. Muscles might cramp, middle of the night, might have cramping in the pool, swimming. Heart rhythm changes. I know someone I swim with was having heart issues, heart rhythmia, and they're on medication. And they're given medication, and I really wanted to say, but I can't say because I keep my mouth shut. Why don't you look at your mineral balance and getting minerals tested, or a hair tissue mineral test to see your minerals imbalance of why you're having heart palpitations. Without the right balance of minerals, heart rhythm will change. Stress tolerance changes, sleep. The vagus nerve becomes less efficient without the minerals. So I always encourage clients to think beyond hydrating with just water. Hydration isn't just water. You don't sweat out water, you sweat out minerals. So hydration means maintaining the electrical environment that allows your cells to communicate to each other. So as athletes, we talk about sweat loss, right? If we're menopause women, females, we feel this hormonal changes that influence mineral balance. If we are just really basically a type A driven individual that's high performer under chronic stress, burning the candle at both ends of the day, magnesium turnover increases dramatically. So we get to have this imbalance in minerals, and this is why a nutritional therapy foundation, minerals is one of our foundations we work on. Now, I touched before on building flexible cell membranes. Every nerve impulse begins with a membrane. Cell membranes are not just walls. What my other discovery is diving into more of how we need to have flexible cell membranes, that they're intelligent communication platforms, that think of these cell membranes as satellites out in space, and we have receptors that live there. Ion channels. Hormone signals have to arrive on that cell receptor site. EPA and DHA from marine omega-3s help keep these membranes flexible. And I learned this from doing labs last year that my cell membranes really needed help on my mitochondria cell membrane test I did with MeScreen. Flexible cell membranes communicate better. When our cell membranes are really rigid, they don't communicate. And I just recorded podcasts with my friend Martha Carlin on her new book out. We talked about cell membranes and the glycocalyx and talk about this rigidness. So omega-3s also help resolve inflammation rather than suppress it. And I want to put a side note here. The goal is not to have no inflammation. We need inflammation, right? Nothing's good or bad. It's just a Goldilocks effect for all of this. The goal's resolution is to heal, return to balance. That's what we can do with omega-3s are involved in that process. So then the other part of the vagus nerve is building the hardware. How you do that. Now, protein, you know by now, is not just a muscle food. It's also helping the nerves, the immune system, the hormones, the enzymes. Protein provides amino acids that literally become neurotransmitters. And this is why I take Body Health Perfect Aminos. If you want discount code, I think it's Coach Debbie Potts. You can save 20% on your Perfect Aminos. Why I take them? Because I don't eat enough protein during the day. And what we're really trying to get from the protein are these essential amino acids. So if we look at glycine, is amino acid. It supports collagen, calms the nervous system, supports sleep. There's also amino acid that's taurine, which helps regulate calcium movement. Taurine helps calms neurons, but also supports bile production. And then there's glutamine that I love for gut repair. It feeds intestinal cells and it supports the gut barrier. Glutamine protects communication between the microbiome and the immune system. Then we have tyrosine, which helps build dopamine and supports motivation to help focus, to be more resilient. Tryptophan, serotonin, melatonin, all this helps. So understanding the role of minerals in our body, or minerals, these enzymes, where they're coming from. Amino acids from protein. I just find it important to look at, it's not just what we eat, but what we do to help improve digestion, and how we need to look at not just simply how much protein's on our plate, but if digestion is impaired, the body cannot properly break down protein into these individual amino acids. These amino acids, as I said, are the building blocks for these neurotransmitters. So think of serotonin, dopamine, GABA. Without adequate supply, the body will struggle to produce these chemical messengers, which leads to changes in our mood, increased anxiety, poor sleep, poor quality of resiliency to stress. So you might feel changes in your muscle repair, your recovery, your mood. This is why digestion always comes before optimization, and something I work on with clients, because we need to understand why digestion isn't functioning and fix it before we can move down and help optimize any other areas. Okay, another big one for your nervous system, vagus nerve. It communicates focusing on one transmitter I've talked about. Do you know what that is? Acetylcholine. If we don't have acetylcholine, we don't have parasympathetic signaling. There's not that rest and digest, heal and repair signal. We don't have the efficient stomach acid production, the bile release. We don't have a coordination in our digestion order of operations or functions. Choline. Choline feeds acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is needed, but where do we get choline to help us make acetylcholine? We've got egg yolks, liver, salmon, what else? Grass-fed beef. So you need to get these foods that are nutrient dense and understand how much do we need to get per day. Are we needing to supplement? Because I'm not eating liver. I just had salmon today, actually. I could have had some eggs for breakfast, and I did not, but I had my BiotiQuest probiotic, yogurts and berries. But egg yolks are one of the richest and most accessible sources, about 125 milligrams per yolk of choline. So making 2 to 3 eggs per day, make sure they're not overcooked, is a simple way to support acetylcholine production. So think about how much do we need per day for men and women. I think it was 400. Let's check. Let's see. If we get choline, men, they need about 550 milligrams of choline per day for adult men, and it says for adult women about 425 milligrams per day. And that can increase if people are pregnant, breastfeeding. The requirements can change because we have to support the cholines needed to help the fetal brain development and milk production. So getting enough choline as eggs, 2 to 3 eggs a day. Liver, beef liver is most concentrated source, providing over 350 milligrams of 3-ounce serving. You can get 350 milligrams of choline. Even consuming it once or twice a week can support your intake. So I do Body Health organ capsules. I get on my full script. I don't like eating liver, but I can swallow a cap. Now, salmon I just had today doesn't have that much, so I still take my supplement. I have a choline supplement. I can take a capsule of that with the meal. salmon has 90 to 100 milligrams per 3-ounce portion while providing omega-3s that support membrane health. So having salmon every day would be great. I have it maybe once a month. So I need to supplement with omega-3 fatty acids and with choline, especially with my genetics. I have a higher requirement for choline based on my genetics. So I always make sure I have those almost every day. Now, grass-fed beef only gives you about 80 to 100 milligrams per 3-ounce serving. So if you get a 6-ounce serving of ground beef, you can get, say, 200 milligrams of choline. So that can help to get consistent daily intake. What we want to look for choline is, say, 400 and 550 milligrams of choline per day to support the nervous system. And you might need more of different vitamins. You'll learn about minerals. The more stress you have, the more training load you're taking on, you have more metabolic demand. We need to understand what we need to adjust and tweak. So one of the reason traditional ancestral diets emphasizes organ meats and whole eggs, it's not trending. It's that we're biologically intelligent, that we needed these foods for functioning at optimal level. So our ancestors were smart. Now, polyphenols, I've done a few episodes on because I find polyphenols interesting, how they can help feed our microbiome. And focusing so much on fiber, I started to think about, well, do polyphenols help us just as much, or do we have to focus on eating all those high fiber foods? What if someone has loose stools, diarrhea, some SIBO? We don't want to eat certain fibers. So I started looking at polyphenols. We're not really feeding ourselves. If you listen to my podcast with Martha Carlin, we're feeding trillions of microbiome partners, our microbiome. So polyphenols act almost as a fertilizer for the beneficial bacteria. I eat blueberries in my super gut yogurt I make in the morning with some cottage cheese in season. Olive oil I pour all over my food. Green tea, I need to get back into drinking more again, but that's a good source of polyphenols. Pomegranates, we have about 30 pomegranates on our trees right now. That will be out in a couple months, but I really don't eat pomegranates, so that's something, maybe a supplement drink mix. Body Health has a Reds drink. I don't always drink because I don't love the taste of Reds, but you can add Reds and get that in a drink mix, and green tea, same kind of thing. If I don't like it, I'm not going to eat it. That's where I need to supplement or get a drink mix as perfect aminos Reds. Now, fresh herbs, dark chocolate, these are all different types of polyphenols that encourage a good bacteria to produce these metabolites I've been diving into, butyrate and other short-chain fatty acids. Butyrate is shown to help strengthen your gut lining, to lower inflammation, to improve vagal signaling, and support healthy aging. So it's amazing how nutritional therapy can really make a difference in our health, being fit and healthy from the inside out. So hopefully this has helped you understand how to focus on what you eat, what to eat each meal, why, how to digest it, how to focus on chewing your food properly and getting your food to break down and making sure we're feeding the microbiome, because it's doing a lot for us, which is what I keep talking about. It's so crazy that if we eat these polyphenols, they're encouraging the bacteria that produce butyrate and other short-chain fatty acids. And these compounds actually strengthen the gut lining. They can tighten the junctions between our intestinal cells, reducing permeability, or we look at, easier to say, leaky gut. And they can prevent this inflammatory compounds, as we've talked about LPS, endotoxicity, from entering circulation. So feeding your good bacteria, that they're going to do so much work for us. So it's a really important part of understanding these metabolites, postbiotics, and more. I've been having different guest experts on the show talking about these metabolites that gut bacteria make. They're also signaling molecules, which I find fascinating, that these bacteria can help direct interaction with the nervous system to enhance the vagal tone and improve communication, sending that message from the gut up to the brain. Crazy. And also they can help lower the systemic inflammation, support an immune balance, that they can help shift the body out of this chronic stress physiology and back into this state of repair that we're trying to get to. So over time, this improved signaling and reduction in the inflammatory burden supports better metabolic health, which is a goal for us, right? Hopefully, and more efficient recovery. And really look at that kind of resiliency, what I'm focused on this year, that is important for us, healthy, how we age, be healthy, fit from the inside out, as we are high performers. So we hopefully are looking at a holistic approach to improving that future you blueprint. Now, back to the microbiome and the vagus nerve. Think about this constant conversation they're having. 80% of vagus fibers are afferent, coming from the gut to the brain, and 20% from the brain to the gut. The microbes are constantly reporting to the headquarters. What do you want them to tell the brain? The healthy microbes produce the butyrate. Inflamed microbes produce danger signals. So the food we choose to eat, nutrition, shapes the conversations every single day. And I just think that's incredible. Science is coming out, and how we can change the signal our gut is telling the brain by feeding the good bacteria in our gut so they can make the food we want, so we get the signals coming back to the brain saying the right signal of safety. Right? Help us heal that gut, avoid getting this LPS endotoxicity into our body and impacting our brain health. So learn more. Martha Carlin goes into that. So think about, if you are not eating a lot of good fiber, you're eating a lot of processed foods, harmful bacteria can dominate. So those weeds take over your garden. And these microbes, remember, Martha talks about these compounds, lipopolysaccharides, and Dr. Davis talks about this and a lot more in his book, Super Gut. These can leak into the bloodstream if that gut wall lining is broken down and trigger this immune activation. So signals that travel through the vagus nerve in the bloodstream, they're telling your brain something's wrong, stay alert, stay defensive. So think about how every meal we eat is influencing how our microbes thrive and what messages are being sent. So the nutrition shapes our conversations every single day. Wacky, right? Then we have our mitochondria I love talking about, and I'll wrap it up, but think, if we don't have ATP energy requiring, every nerve impulse requires ATP to create that function. So if we don't have the mitochondria being healthy, we're not getting energy, we're not able to communicate. And this is why I love doing PNOE metabolism testing, because I can identify, do we have poor oxygen utilization? Do we have poor metabolic flexibility? Are you lacking good optimal fat oxidation? How's your breathing? Do you have excessive ventilation? So all of this suggests that the nervous system is spending too much energy simply trying to survive. Remember, healthy mitochondria need iron, they need B vitamins, CoQ10, creatine, protein, healthy fats, sunlight, movement, sleep. These are all nutrients that some come on our plate, but some arrive through our environment. So one of the most overlooked nutritional therapies I talk about is how you eat. Slow down. This is what I see most people can do first. Eat mindfully, as they say, not mindlessly. Inhaling their food. Even if it's organic, grass-fed beef, wild salmon, you're taking all these expensive supplements, but if you're eating while you're checking email, you're driving your car, you're watching the news, you're arguing, you're at work, at your desk, your vagus nerve never fully activates. So remember, digestion begins the first bite. Take 3 breaths, look at your food, chew it thoroughly, taste it, enjoy the flavors. Allow your nervous system to shift into this parasympathetic mode first. Sometimes the greatest digestive supplement I'm finding for most everybody I work with is just being present. It just takes you a moment to breathe. That's all I need you to do. Step one, just take a moment to push pause, alternate control delete as you do on your computer for your body before you start diving into that food. So when people ask me what foods support the vagus nerve, as I'm going to start going on to different podcast interviews and discussing this, I think about, is this the right question? What foods support the vagus nerve? Or should we be asking it differently? What environment allows the vagus nerve to communicate? How about that? What environment allows the vagus nerve to communicate? Instead of asking, what foods should I eat to support the vagus nerve? Turn it around. Think about what we talked about. Stabilizing your blood sugar, eating enough quality protein that you can properly break down to get those amino acids, healthy fats for those omega-3 fatty acids, so getting your fish or supplementing, minerals, as you can do trace minerals, you can do beam minerals, I really like. Omega-3 fatty acids, I spoke about. Polyphenols, colorful plants, eating from the rainbow that doesn't bother your gut, getting a healthy microbiome, strong mitochondria, and we talk about eating in a state of safety. The vagus nerve isn't simply your stress nerve. We always thought about that when I was measuring heart rate variability starting back in 2013 when I had my health issues, was about let's try to improve that HRV. We know so much more now. That's a communication nerve, as well as digestion, recovery, metabolism, anti-inflammatory nerve, as I talked about the anticholinergic pathway and the role of acetylcholine to turn off that inflammation, longevity. This is when communication improves. Then we see everything else downstream improve. Your digestion, your hormones, your recovery, performance, healthy aging. And this is why inside of my FutureYou Blueprint Method, I'm not just chasing symptoms. I'm focusing on how we can rebuild communication one signal at a time, focusing on your meals, your breathing, your daily routine. Your FutureYou is not created by one miracle supplement. It's created by millions of tiny biological conversations happening inside you every second of the day. So the question is, as I keep asking, are you giving your body the transformation it needs to thrive? So let me know. Questions, head over to debbiepotts.net and schedule a free discovery call with me over there. Thanks for listening to another Rabbit Hole episode with me as I share with you what I'm working on, what I'm thinking about, and which rabbit hole I've gone down today, putting this all together to optimize our aging process, to restore metabolic chaos to metabolic harmony, to improve the future you.
Thanks for listening to the Coach Debbie Potts Show. If today's episode sparked a light bulb moment, that's your sign to stop guessing and start building your personalized FutureYou Blueprint. You can learn more or book a discovery call at www.debbiepotts.net. Be sure to follow the show on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search Coach Debbie Potts. 2 T's. If this episode helped you, please subscribe, rate, and review. It's how we help more people age with strength, energy, and clarity. Until next time, remember, age is inevitable. How you age is not.